talk about another conversation I don't like?
So that's right. So that's what I was just gonna say, right? So I think that the losing has accentuated or exacerbated the Twitter talk, right? Like all this stuff that would that everybody's debating now wouldn't be a debate if this team was winning the games that they were last year, right?
That's fair.
So the big thing that's been going on, because there was a big article, this week, right, that just popped out from an Indianapolis beat writer, right? Basically saying that he's never seen a defense be transformed the way that Deforest Buckner has transformed this Colts defense. This has been, we don't have the Garoppolo and Mullins discussion anymore on the timeline because that's just not something that's happening anymore. This has been what's taken over the timeline. If it's not this, it's about whether Kyle can actually identify quarterbacks. So these are the two topics. So this topic I think we should talk about. So the whole Buckner, Armstead, Kinlaw thing, right? Like, Akash, we'll start with you. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? It's beautiful thing. Easy. It's so easy to say, yeah, you shouldn't have did that after you did it. But when the 49ers traded Buckner, yeah, there were people that were against it. But I feel like if I would have bookmarked everyone's tweets, everyone was like, oh, look at the genius, got a 13th pick, got this guy to replace him. So what is the way that we should really be looking at this at this point?
Yeah, I'm a big process over results guy. And I kind of said this yesterday, and I say this with Jimmy Garoppolo all the time, right? If he has good process, if he does the right thing, the right play, more often than not, the results will be positive. And more often than not, he has bad process, so it leads to, mistakes. And it's the same thing being a GM, being John Lynch, right? When you go into last offseason, your team has Super Bowl expectations coming into 2020. You are strapped with the salary cap. You've got, Deforest Buckner, Arik Armstead, Emmanuel Sanders, Jimmy Ward. You got free agents up the wazoo, and you have no cap space to sign all these guys. So you're going to have to make tough decisions. Obviously, George Kittle. And so none of those guys were going to net you a first-round pick. Let's be real, right? Arik Armstead, George Kittle, whatever. DeForest Buckner was, right? And not just like a late first-round pick. He was going to net you a top half, the 13th overall pick. And so in a vacuum, I would have done that deal 10 times out of 10. And knowing what I know now, I would still do that deal 10 times out of 10 because it's the right thing to do, right? You trade an interior defensive lineman who was a better player than Arik Armstead or than what Javon Kinlaw may become, but you'd still do that because you get the first-round pick. You move that salary away, and then you're able to re-sign Arik Armstead. You're able to re-sign Jimmy Ward. Obviously, you're able to use that pick. And actually, one of the other things, they move back from 13 to 14. They still get Kinlaw. They get an extra mid-round pick, which they use in a trade-up to go get Brandon Ayuk. So if they don't, trade back, do they get Ayuk? Like, do they have to give something else? So there's all these different things that are a part of that. Then the other part of it is people always throw the whole salary part of it, right? They always say, oh, Buckner's making, $21 million per year. Arik Armstead's making 17. It's only a difference of $4 million. NFL salaries aren't structured like that. They all have different structures. They have different guarantees. Some are front-loaded, some are back-loaded. And depending on how your salary cap is structured, teams like to structure the contracts differently. Buckner's cap hit this year is over $20 million. Armstead's is only $6 million. There was no way they were going to fit that much guaranteed money for Buckner and fit that cap hit in 2020, even though he's the better player. Like, I think everyone knows that. And so I think it's unfair when people criticize this team because the 49ers made that move thinking that Nick Bosa and Dee Ford were going to be healthy, and Arik Armstead and Javon Kinlaw were arguably going to be the third and the fourth best defensive linemen, right? They knew that they're going to have good edge rushers, and so it'll allow those guys to develop. Well, now you don't have Bosa, you don't have Ford. You're running out Kerry Hyder, who is a good player, but he's a rotational guy at best. And now there's more attention on Armstead, more attention on Kinlaw, and you've had to accelerate their growth. And it's tough, especially for Kinlaw in an offseason where they haven't had OTAs, they haven't had mini camp, they haven't had preseason. Like, it's a lot of expectations, and people are quick to judge. It's today's climate. Everyone, wants to overreact, give you their opinion. So, I'm happy for DeForest Buckner. He's kicking butt over there in Indianapolis. They arguably have the best front seven right now in NFL, and he's the key reason for that. But this whole thing with the article with Stephen Holder and The Athletic, it's just a giant, FU to the 49ers. He's probably been waiting to do this for weeks, right? It's his way of, quote unquote, winning the breakup. He's basically saying, hey, I wanted to meet in the middle. I wanted to be there, but you guys let me go. Now look at me. I'm kicking butt, and your defensive line stinks. Like, that's all it is. And now, everyone's reacting emotionally and they're going, oh, we should have kept Buckner. We shouldn't have signed Armstead, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it's unfair expectations. The Colts look good right now, but let's let Kinlaw develop. Let's let Bosa get healthy. They'll probably replace Ford with another edge rusher, and we'll see in another year or two, because the 49ers made a long-term play, and everyone wants to react like 9 weeks into the trade. So that's my take.
Let's go, Andrew.
Yeah.
Sounds like something you'd say. I'm
pretty much I like this. He says everything I want to say, but just a lot smarter. I love it. DeForest Buckner is a very good football player. DeForest Buckner is a great football player. Unfortunately, the Niners just didn't have the space to keep him. And I saw a lot of why take Kinlaw. Like, unless your name's Aaron Donald, don't take a defensive tackle in the first round. DeForest Buckner was a first-round pick. DeForest Buckner got you a first-round pick as well. So if you're not taking, defensive tackles with first-round picks, and you're able to get a defensive tackle with a first-round pick not named Aaron Donald, like you do it every time. DeForest Buckner's cap hit this season is $23 million. It's $17 million after this. It's $16 million after that. And then it bounces back up to 19 and 20 if he chooses to stay with the Colts for that long. I understand the emotional attachment to players, and I understand that he was there when things were rough. He was there. He was really the bright spot in that 2018 year where Garoppolo goes down. He took over that defensive line. He really had his coming out party that season. I understand the emotional attachment, but when you step back, this was a move the Niners had to make. There was a lot of gaps they had to fill. And I think the comparison to Javon Kinlaw to DeForest Buckner, I know that's a comparison as well. The Niners did not draft Javon Kinlaw for him to become DeForest Buckner. The Niners drafted Javon Kinlaw to be a piece with Nick Bosa, to be a piece with Arik Armstead, to be a piece with D Ford. This is not an individual defensive line. This is a defensive line that needed everybody to be together and play together. And now all of a sudden you take two of the best pass rushers out of the equation and you have just Kinlaw and Armstead. Naturally, those players aren't going to perform as well. I think Kinlaw was also drafted a little bit to help with the run game. And defensive tackle is such a tough position to gauge, because only the really top ones make sacks. They get those numbers that you see physically on paper. I'm talking Aaron Donald. I'm talking DeForest Buckner. But what a lot of defensive tackles do is things that don't pop up on the stat sheet. Things that just aren't there in numbers. That the best number that you can find is that PFF grade. And that's a number that you take as a starting point. I think Kinlaw's been fine. I know Armstead's been a little disappointing, but you have to take it with a grain of salt, because this defensive line was built around Nick Bosa and D Ford, and both of them are gone. Therefore, that's why you have Kerry Hyder. That's why you have guys like that coming in. That's why Ziggy Ansah was signed. Ziggy Ansah is not on the 49ers without injuries, So it's really unfair to judge what the Niners defensive line is this year. And I know DeForest Buckner's having a great year, and it's really easy to see how he's doing in Indianapolis and be like, well, that's what he could have been here. But on the flip side, maybe that's not what he was here, and I know he had his good season without Bosa, but maybe, it's unfair to really judge this move in this season. So if I had to make a vote, I'm going to abstain from the vote right now. I don't think I'm placing a grade on this trade yet. I'm not placing grade on Kinlaw. I've liked what Kinlaw's done this year. For what he is, especially and something we lose with the season this year is the preseason and all those reps he would have gotten to. So like let's just not be critical, because if there's no injuries to this team is probably, what's the record, 4-5? Let's just say worst case 6-3. They're in a playoff spot, and nobody cares about what DeForest Buckner is doing in Indianapolis. Nobody cares. So that's kind of my point on that. And as I said, you said it just way smarter than I did. So
no, you said that beautifully. But losing puts a magnifying glass on your team, and everything gets picked apart. Everybody from everywhere wants to have takes on your team, and so that's been the case with Arik Armstead. Has he underperformed? Probably. Is he worth what he's paid? Probably not. He's a high end 2, and when you put him with Nick Bosa, when you put him with D Ford, he's going to produce. And if they were all healthy, he'd be producing, and no one would be talking about it. But when there's no one rushing the passer and he's got to take double teams on, or whatever the case is, or when he's playing out of position, doesn't look as good, and all of a sudden he sticks out like a sore thumb and he's getting criticized left and right. So it just comes with the territory if you're Arik Armstead.
Yeah, this mini bye week came at the wrong time, right? After a loss, like, and then you have all this time to try and figure stuff out. So what I'll say is this: it's almost like this defense isn't as good when Nick Bosa and all the pieces that they wanted to be there aren't there, right?
Yeah.
Nobody expected Arik Armstead to be the primary pass rusher. Javon Kinlaw, at least in the beginning, was slotted as a 2-down lineman. Not a every snap guy out of necessity now, right? Yep. And again, I've said this a million times. Stop comparing Kinlaw immediately to Buckner. That if you expected Kinlaw to come out of this draft and immediately be Buckner, that's your fault. Nobody should have thought that at all. Nobody should have ever thought that. What Kinlaw does well is he closes run gaps. You know, he's working his way through trying to learn his moves. He bats passes down. He hustles. Like, he had no camp, no sort of preseason reps, and now he's being asked to be on the field all the time and be a complete impact player. Again, injuries have put the spotlight on guys that weren't supposed to be primary or supposed to be the main people, right? Like, the idea of Armstead is you kick him inside when you have edge rushers, and that's when he's going to win, right? Like, nobody expects him to go out there and do everything, right? So I'm just a little bit tired of this discussion, as usual, is because it gets drawn out over days now. Like, it's not stopping, right? Whatever you think, whatever our opinion, this is what happened. Buckner's not on the team anymore. Armstead's on the team. Are we done? Are we done? Like, is this it? Like, we're not getting Buckner back. That's it. Like, and again, I wish I bookmarked all the tweets because so many people were like, this is the move. You don't pay a lineman, you know, this amount of money. He's not Aaron Donald. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, the 13th pick. Look what we got. Now, all of a sudden, with hindsight and all this stuff going on, oh, why'd you let Buckner go? We couldn't assign Armstead. Like, guys, come on, check yourself a little. I don't want to have to go through your Twitters and start looking up what you've been saying and hitting you with this. Like, don't make me do that, please. Come on, guys. Scrub your Twitter.
And